Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this first edition of the LEAPx Finance Conference and the third overall LEAP conference that we've been hosted across the last couple of years. Um, we're going to be talking a few things, of course, as you can imagine, around the financial services industry. But as you do with most conferences and most events and most sessions, the first thing that you must do here is to start by sharing exactly what we're going to be doing. So here we are. Getting warmed up. It's early morning here still. It's 9 o'clock where I'm coming from. Joining you from Durham, North Carolina, by the way. So in the chat, if you're trying to get warmed up as well, let us know where you're joining us from and tell us what's the one thing that you are really excited to learn about over the course of these 5 hours that we're going to be spending together. So once again, hello and welcome to LeapX Finance. This is our mini conference looking into the world of financial services, helping you, enabling you, guiding you to navigate this next era of financial services with APIs and AI. Now, as I said earlier on, this is the third event in this LEAP series. And the LEAP series kind of started, the LEAP conference series started with this idea of enabling, empowering our audience to take that next leap forward in their API journey. In 2024, we explored the world of API observability. Earlier this year, we explored the world of everything API governance. This time, very first time, we're going deep diving into the world of financial services. We're vertical that potentially, not potentially, that definitely touches all of our lives in some capacity, one way or another, whether we are consumers, business owners, government bodies, financial services is going to be everywhere. Everything associated with it, the nuances around the standards, the regulations, the compliances, monetization, security, governance, observability, all of those things matter. They're important. And of course, who can forget everything associated with AI as well? So we're going to be talking about all of those things over the course of the next 5 hours. So saddle up. A little background once again. Over the course of these conferences, we've had 50 plus expert speakers and about 3,000 plus participants with certifications. There will be certifications for this one as well. So thank you, the audience, for being part of this journey. And once again, welcome to LeapX Finance. Now, so of course, to kick us off, what is in store for today? Um, well, a whole series of incredible speakers who are going to be joining us right from the get-go, from the panel discussion that's going to kick us off in about 7 minutes' time. We're going to be looking at the nuances of the financial services industry, each speaker bringing their own level of expertise and areas that we want to explore, deep dive into, and hopefully equip you to make better decisions going forward in this particular industry. Whether you're a veteran, whether you're just about getting started, or somewhere in between, we are here to help you, guide you through these conversations today. Now, of course, the caveat here is we are only getting to spend about 30 minutes per session. There's obviously more conversations to be had. So the way you can interact with us throughout the course of the day would be the lobby. The lobby is where you kind of have a gathering space. That's your initial arena for having any sort of conversation. You can chat with other fellow attendees. You can chat with us. You can chat with the speakers as well as other organizers from TIG. So your lobby is going to be your home for the 5 hours. So safe space for everybody. The sessions themselves, they are broken down into 7 sessions. Right now, we are in sort of just the beginning. We're going through some of those opening remarks. We are going to be moving into the opening panel discussion. Straight after this, you do not have to change rooms, but just as a principle, in case you see separate sessions, each session is associated with its own individual Zoom room. So you can pick and choose, or you can attend all of them, but you will have 10 minutes to switch between them. There is going to be a 20-minute refreshments break in the middle. So once again, plan accordingly and join in as you will the sessions that matter the most to you. Hopefully, all of them do. So apart from this, you also have the ability to ask questions within the sessions itself. So at the bottom of your screen, you're probably going to be seeing these a Q&A button. If you're not seeing it, do let me know. There is going to be a Q&A segment there. Feel free to add your questions throughout the course of each session. The moderators, whether that is myself or Laura, will be picking up those questions if it fits into the bill of the discussion. Otherwise, we'll pick them up at the end of the session. And by any chance, if we miss those, they are going to be recorded. We'll pick them up as a part of the follow-up with you as well. So feel free to do that. Of course, chat amongst yourself, ask any other, have any comments, share your experiences if you can while you're doing so as well. Now, apart from this, there are two exciting things that you can also look forward to by virtue of participating today. One that needs a little bit more effort than the other, but they are equally exciting for you to achieve. Starting off with the CPD credits. Now, these are really, really valuable for you to earn. For a lot of you have actually told us that this matters to you as well when we asked you. So the way to earn these CPD credits, essentially, listen to all the sessions, survive the 5 hours, or enjoy the 5 hours. I think that's a better way of putting it. Enjoy the 5 hours of sessions and discussions. At the end, during the closing remarks, is where we'll be sharing a QR code, a link for you to earn those or claim your 5 CPD credits here. It's going to look something like this. Apart from that, we have also giving you the ability to earn your own certification. This is the API fundamentals for the financial services industry certification. It's got a combination of APIs, API governance, as well as some of the fundamentals of the financial services industry. For those familiar with Leap, we've done this with observability and governance as well. This is taking the next step in that journey. Once again, 30 questions, 80% to pass. It's not that difficult to pass, to be honest, but hopefully you get an opportunity to learn something. Hopefully, if you're listening carefully at all the sessions today, it should be an absolute breeze. So the link again will be shared with you at the end of this conference. And that's about it, really. Hopefully, you're excited to take this journey with us. And when I say us, that is me. I am Buddha. I am the Director of Product Ecosystem here at Tyke, as well as the board chair of the Open API Initiative. For the purpose of today, I'm going to be co-hosting this conference. You'll be seeing me moderating some of the sessions, including the opening panel. And joining me, and actually, no, I'm also going to be playing this role of a person who kind of knows things in this particular space, kind of knows things in the API space, and I'm trying to take that next leap in my own learning journey. Hopefully, you can relate to that a little bit. But to pair up with that, I have Laura with me right here, who is pretty much the subject matter expert on all things open finance and the financial services industry. So over to you, Laura, for a bit of an introduction and tell us how you're feeling about today.
All right. Thank you so much, Buddha. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to LEAPxFinance. Laura Heritage. I am here in Rochester, Minnesota, and very excited to share and learn from everyone. So thank you for being here today, and a special thank you to our incredible speakers who are joining us to share their real-world journeys with open finance and AI. We're living through a moment of extraordinary change in financial services. The landscape is being reshaped literally overnight by forces we didn't predict 6 to 12 months ago. 12 months ago, I was hosting OpenFinity's Expo, and while the topics are the same, it's all happening faster. Open finance, being driven by regulation and market demands, is fundamentally changing how financial data flows and who controls it. AI is transforming how we build, operate, and think about financial services. And not to mention the geopolitical forces that are rewriting the rules of the game as we speak. I mean, we wake up each morning to something new. The conversations we're having today about open finance standards such as FDX, AI-powered APIs, and the future of consumer permission data, they were, like I said, they were all on our radars, 12 months ago, but they were on our radars kind of separately. These are now all on our radar together, and with a huge sense of urgency for getting a strategy. The phrase that comes to my mind is everything, everywhere, all at once is happening right now. The pace of change is that dramatic. This is exactly why forums such as LEAPxFinance are so critical. We need safe spaces where we can come together. We can share what is actually working. We can separate the signal from the noise, and we can keep our fingers on the pulse of what is real versus what is just hype. So let's dive in, learn from each other, and navigate this transformation together. So let's get started, Buddha. Oop, I think you're on mute.
Fantastic. There you go. All right. I'm going to restart that. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that introduction, Laura. We are just about a minute away from starting the panel. But before we go there, let's do a little bit of an energy check. I know it's different time zones for different people at this stage. So it'll be interesting to know where you lie right now in your excitement level spectrum. We'll be talking about spectrum and maturity a lot. So right now on your screen, you'll be seeing this question about what is your current energy or excitement level. If you're like Laura and I, we are pretty much at that 5. At least that's where we are starting. We'll talk again at the end of the 5 hours once we are done. But right now, that's where we are. It's a lot of excitement about what's possible, the kind of conversations we can have, the speakers that we have lined up. So feel free, share where you are. There's no wrong answer. I would prefer if you also start at the slightly lower end. We can get you hyped up at the end of the first one. So no wrong answers, as I said. And with that, let us invite our panelists over from the backstage. So let me help with that. Panelists, if you're listening, there you go. I see Michelle's here and I see Laurent's here. Okay, perfect. Hello and welcome to the LEAPxFinance opening panel discussion.
Thank you for having us.
All right, sound works. That's no technical difficulties. Videos are on. Perfect. Everyone looks great. So I'm going to leave the poll on for a little while. And what's going to happen right now is obviously a really important aspect of getting us off the ground is to build this shared and common understanding of this entire landscape. And there are 3 big things that usually keep coming up over and over again. And that is open banking, open finance, and financial data exchange, or FDX. So what we thought we would do with this opening panel discussion is that we want to bring experts from each of these sectors or segments and provide us with a little bit of a deep dive into what they mean, why they matter, some of the nuances associated with it, what do people get wrong, and some of the implementation know-how / best practices associated with it. So with that, let me start. Let me just bring up the questions. And we can jump right on it. All right, so let's start off, go around the room perhaps. I'm going to start with Michelle. We're going to be doing a bit of an introduction to get us started. So Michelle, let us know who you are. And in 60 seconds, perhaps, tell us a little bit about your area of expertise, which happens to be open banking. What is it all about, why it exists, and maybe one thing that's a misconception associated with it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here this morning. My name is Michelle Bayo, CEO and founder of Finnovator, as well as the president of the Open Finance Network here in Canada. So passionate about open banking, as I truly believe it is an innovation revolution that is happening. And it's enabling control and empowerment to consumers around the world. It's currently live in 98 countries. And North America is one of the last to regulate open banking, though there's 100 million users in the US today, and it is being utilized for empowerment, inclusion, and accessibility. And I feel that today's discussion is going to help the audience truly understand the power of open finance, open banking, and eventually open data. And one of the misconceptions is that this is just a regulatory compliance checkmark. To me, this is a future-proofing infrastructure change to allow data in, data out, all on a consumer empowerment, consumer consent basis.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm going to head over to you, Laura, because sometimes, open banking, open finance tend to get paired up a little bit. So maybe tell us a little bit about open finance. You've already done your introduction, so we'll dive straight in.
All right.
Sure.
So great. Oh, was it to me? Yeah.
Laura. Yeah.
Laura.
I can see there could be a bit of a naming confusion.
Well, we've
there.
been there before.
Laurent.
Yeah, we're used to it.
Laura and Laurent. I think that's how I'm going to go with it. So over to you, Laura.
Great. So I think open finance is a broader area. It is an inclusion of, it's not just the inclusion of more financial data, such as being able to bring in annuities and investments and insurance. Open finance is really about doing more. It's about moving from just having financial transparency to actually having financial actions, giving consumers genuine control over their entire financial lives, not just their bank balances. It really opens the door. And I think I totally agree with Michelle that this is not just about regulation. This is about a new financial ecosystem where there is a lot of opportunities for all the players that are in this ecosystem. So, and we'll talk more about that in a bit.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much. Over to you, Laurent. Tell us a
Thank
little bit
you.
about financial data exchange. Tell us a little bit about yourself, perhaps, to just
Sure.
get people to know a little bit more, and then FDX.
Thank you for having me, Buddha. Happy to be here. So my name is Laurent Van Haffel. I work for the Financial Data Exchange, or FDX. Maybe a little bit of what FDX is. We are a non-for-profit organization that is industry and member-led. Our members are typically banks, fintech, aggregators, privacy advocates. And so we define the technical standard for open finance in the US and Canada that provide the interoperability across the ecosystem. So I'm sure we'll have the ability to talk a little bit more about this. And then in terms of misconceptions, a lot of times I hear that this is, just for the consumer and not for the banks, but it's really a win-win. Everybody wins. The banks, credit unions, the fintechs, and of course the consumers. There is second misconceptions is that open banking already has been existed for many years in the form of screen scraping, which is the ability to access information without the consent of the consumer, neither with the one from the banks. And so that has not been very secure. And so what open banking through this industry-led provide a technical means through the form of APIs to securely share with the consent of the consumer, that's why we call it permission sharing data, their financial data.
Perfect. All right. Couple of misconceptions right there. But that's really helpful to know, because as we can imagine in this particular space, there are spectrums of understanding, spectrums of adoption. And I think these misconceptions sometimes get in the way of actually understanding what's valuable, how to actually approach the problems that they are set out to achieve or find a solution to. So on that note, perhaps I come to you, Michelle. With open banking, obviously it's existed for a little while now, but the adoption across regions, across segments have been a little bit varied. So it'll be really good to get your inputs on what you see as the sort of the biggest success, perhaps, of open banking and its existence over this course of time, and what's been sort of a significant either limitation or what's prevented people from taking that step into adopting open banking.
To share that. When I look at the global landscape, looking at the UK that launched in 2017, meaning we're 8 years into open banking, and there's many success stories. As I mentioned, there's 98 countries who've moved to open banking, 43 to open finance, and only 1 or 2 that have gone to open data. Some of the biggest success stories that I've seen are within the UK market and the Brazilian market. They were both regulated markets, meaning everyone had to get on board. All the banks, fintechs had to be accredited. There was an accreditation process, and this accreditation process had a tiered level so that smaller fintechs could still be part of the ecosystem, where some countries are looking at only the highest tier allowed into the ecosystem, which will stifle competition. The whole point of open banking is to drive innovation, access, and drive up GDP, I think should be its ultimate goal, because this is basically opening an ecosystem to have this consent-driven data that Laurent spoke about, that the consumer's in control, that I'm only going to share these 5 pieces of data to get me a more personalized product or a cheaper loan. In some of the examples in Brazil, they moved to open banking with a 12-month mandate. They moved to open finance right after with a 12-month mandate. So in 24 months, they went from nothing to full open finance. What that has done, we just did a report at the Open Finance Network Canada last year on SMEs being the biggest winners of an open finance ecosystem, because in Brazil, it's actually shown that their interest rates to businesses have gone down by 2%, and credit unions volumes have gone up by about 17%, because credit unions are able to assess risk better, therefore give out more loans, and therefore increase deposits. So this is an ecosystem GDP growth opportunity. There's actually a McKinsey report written in 2021 that speaks to an up to 5% GDP growth for any one country that implements open data, not open banking. So this isn't just a one use case, one industry infrastructure. This is looking at how do you drive consent-driven data across all industry. It's a framework change.
Okay, no, amazing. Those numbers are really, really good. I think I'm gonna find that the document associated with it, because that's really telling. So thank you for sharing that. One question that also comes up quite a bit, and there's a bit of a confusion sometimes for people, I guess, who are not ingrained into it. There is open banking, and then there is PSD2. What's the difference? Why are they two separate things? Is it one related to the other? Like, what's the correlation there?
Yeah, I won't go into too much detail, but PSD2 was the catalyst for open banking in the UK, and it was very much payments focused, which I think some countries are not focused on payments. Payments are one of the biggest use cases in open banking, and that means that you have to have write access, not just read access for the data to enable this. Everyone's talking about pay by bank. You can only facilitate pay by bank if you have write access to the data. And then what that does is allow me to pay account to account. I'm still going to use my credit card to, book flights and things that I want insurance on. But if I want to pay for a small merchant locally and I want them to have the least amount of cost to accept my payment, I'd love to pay by bank in a seamless way that has my identity hidden behind the curtain, but at least validating that I am who I say I am, and I'm paying someone who is who they say they are.
Perfect. That's very helpful. Thank you so much. Moving on to Laura, in this case. So obviously open finance extends some of the principles of open banking, as you mentioned earlier on. And it sort of goes beyond the bank account, so to speak, or the banking system themselves. It goes into the realms of investments and insurance and pensions and beyond. So according to you, just similar to what we just heard from Michelle about the opportunities that's been unlocked with open banking, what would you say that sort of opportunity unlocking has happened across, say, by virtue of having open finance, and again, the limitations that people might have faced or challenges associated?
I'm going to play off of Michelle's ecosystem. Open finance is built on an ecosystem of players, and each player has different opportunities and benefits and challenges. And when I think of an ecosystem, I kind of go back to John Nash, who's a famous mathematician, and he created the Nash equilibrium principle of game theory, right? And if you're not a math nerd, you probably remember the movie A Beautiful Mind. And this principle basically states that the best outcomes comes from everyone in the group doing what's best for themselves and what's best for the group. So if you have one person that only does for themselves and not for the group, the ecosystem does not fly as well. So when we think about that, and I'm really a strong believer in this principle and in the open finance ecosystem, we have to take a look of who all the players are in this financial ecosystem. So you have your consumers, that's us, that's everybody on this call. And what benefits do we want? Open banking basically gave us an insight into our financial picture, with the screen scraping, but with the regulation, it gave us actually control over, what we want to share about ourselves. And it gave us greater, another benefit of open finance to us as the consumer, it gives us portability right? Being able to go out and see, what financial, what's the best interest rates out there, and how can I move my data there faster? It goes back to Michelle's principle about, being able to not only have the read, but also have the right access to be able to move all of this. And how many, going on the open finance, how many of you tried to switch in the US, tried to switch your insurance companies, right? How do you move from one insurance agent to another? And the open finance is just on the brink of that, open insurance. So it's not as as smooth as we are getting to with banking, but that is coming too. So from a consumer, I have all of these benefits. I can have improved credit, as Michelle mentioned. But the challenges are, how do I keep myself safe? How do I keep myself the privacy and the complexity of being overwhelmed? How do we bring everybody, all the consumers, up to this level and give them that mobility? The other player in the ecosystem is obviously the financial institutions, the banks, the credit unions, the insurance. And not only are they the providers of this information, they also have to be consumers of this information. And this gives the power and helps generate that ecosystem. They can have new product innovation. They'll be able to see their customers, their members' insight, what they need, and being able to give, like as Michelle said, with the loans, being able to give better loans based on different types of information. The challenges, of course, it's the cost. It's the infrastructure that you need to set up to not only provide the information, but how do you consume? How do you move? That's very important. And the technical part to me is very, we can do that. The harder part that is a challenge across each region is really the risks and liabilities, and where does that lie? When I talk to most of the financial institutions I talk to, they can say, yep, check, we got the FDX API. But what they don't have is being, having to create those bilateral agreements. In the US, in an unregulated market, we do not have a central directory. We don't have a trust network. And so it's up to each of the individual players in the ecosystem to do that. And so that's a real problem that we need to solve. And then finally, the third player in this ecosystem are all those third parties, those innovative fintechs. It's the utilities companies. It's, everything that deals, every company, the retail companies, everything that plays in this ecosystem. There's a massive market and opportunity for expansion. And as Michelle said, growing that GDP, this is how, enabling each one and, each one of these players. So I can go on forever, the benefits, to each for the third parties and the opportunity, having that data network effect as we move from open finance to open data. The challenges a lot of these third parties have is the regulation. When we think about going back to that insurance and insurtech, right? The big challenge there is, in Brazil started tackling this, and I was down there when they were, and trying to actually define what an insurance product is and all the features and functions and stuff is a huge monumental effort to do that. So that's one of the challenges they face. So there's a lot of challenges, but each member of the ecosystem stands to benefit a lot. And the GDP will really grow when we get this ecosystem flying together. So long-winded answer for you, Buddha.
No worries. I think that's as comprehensive as it gets, I suppose, from open finance standpoint. It's very interesting listening to both of you, sort of almost thinking about how the two standards sort of exist at this point of time, or they're playing off each other with these different players, and sort of that ecosystem approach rather than just being seen as a technical only thing. Sometimes I'm not sure that's necessarily the way it works, but there is often this thing in the back of our head that we need to check boxes, and those check boxes typically then convert or translate into capabilities and functionalities of a platform or a tool, as opposed to thinking more holistically associated with it. And we'll touch upon that a little bit later. Coming to you, Laurent, of course, FDX, Financial Data Exchange, has sort of become the cornerstone for standardized, secure, permission data exchange in North America. And it'll be great to get your opinion on this as well. Like, how FDX potentially correlates with something like an open finance, open banking. Are there the similarities there? And what makes it different? What makes it sort of unique in its own right that people need to take note of? Is it the regions? Is it sort of the approach? Is it sort of the implementation? What sort of the similarities and differences when it comes to FDX?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, let's not confuse open banking, open finance, and FDX. They are different things. So FDX provide the technical standard that enables open finance, open banking, right? And so sometimes people use open banking and open finance, the same way, but the only differences is that open banking covers specific banking product, like like checking, savings, and open finance covers a larger spectrum of financial product like investment, but the concept is the same. So FDX as a technical standard, today there are about over 1,000 financial institutions in the US and Canada that use the FDX standard. We powered about over 114 millions of accounts that are linked through those FDX APIs. And so the value is that it creates this interoperability that enables open finance to scale. Everyone here on this webcast who's listening to us, who's done integrations, knows the cost of integrations. If you had to do it in a custom way for every single entity out there, it will not be able to scale. It will be way too expensive. It will take way too much time. I'll give you an example. We just did a webinar with 4 of our members recently, and one of them, Trustly, which is a payment fintech, they reduced their integration from third party from several months to 2 weeks, just because those 2 entities use the exact same APIs. So we provide technical specs that is, again, industry-led, designed by our members. We have about 2,000 members. And so those APIs cover security, authentications, and so on. And so the way we work is through the groups, working groups, and task force. Some of them are very specialized for like taxes, payroll, money movement, and so on. And so we provide this and release these specs that members, but also non-members, they are available to all, can adopt and create these integrations.
Great. Thank you so much. That clarification was also very helpful because people do have this tendency of confusing these 3 things, and they're taken in the same breath, and they think it's more of a regional thing, and therefore thinking about it a little bit differently. I really like what you mentioned about FDX sort of enabling open finance to scale. I think that's a pretty solid way of looking at it, especially from a technical standard standpoint, which is really, really helpful. I think what would be really, I guess, as a next step, I know we are getting very close to the end of time here for our session. What would be really good is, obviously, there is this misconception when we are thinking about implementing standards or implementing sort of open specifications of any sort whatsoever, that it is a binary approach, that it is either or. Either you have it or you don't have it. There is no in-between or a middle ground associated with it. So maybe what would be helpful for those in the audience who are trying to take this journey, whether they are getting started or midway through the journey, is how should they approach implementing or adopting each of these different areas? So maybe I'll start with you, Laurent. So let's say tomorrow someone wants to adopt or utilize sort of FDX APIs. What would be the journey that they would be taking from, say, ground zero to being completely at the highest level of maturity? What could that journey look like?
So you have different steps. The first one is I would call it the technical integration. So you will download the specs and you will translate the specs into your API using your own product, like the one from TIC, for instance. Technically, it's not that difficult. The challenges come from some of the choices you have to make. In fact, I would argue that it's one of the biggest value we provide to our members. When it comes to, for instance, OAuth, it's not as a simple, straight, decisions process that it looks like. You have to make some decisions. Some banks wants to actually be the system of record and control all the authorizations for every single transactions. Some other will work with like an aggregator such as, Plaid, MX, or Yodlee, and they will allow them to provide the token, for all transactions, and some, will do, a hybrid model depending on the applications, the use case, and so on. So when you start, you have to make some decisions, and by being a member, for instance, and participating to some of the work group, you can hear your peers, your colleagues making some decisions why they are choosing that kind of models versus others. There are other, so that's, I would say, on the technical side. Then you have the legal side, the risk management aspect, which is actually a lot of times misunderstood, and that's another aspect of whether you need to comply in the US with, as of today, still, the law of the land, what is called the 1033 regulation. But even though you still have to understand the risk management and the compliance, and so when it comes to open finance as a data provider like a bank, you sometimes deal with a second, third, fourth, or even sometimes fifth third-party downstreams that you have to, again, understand. And so we have actually a new task force that define with the members of, risk officers, compliance, risk management. We define the norms, which is defining a common language where every party understand what they're talking about. And so we define a framework that people can take as a risk management framework to better manage those risks, those downstreams risk. So that's the, as a whole, the two major tasks, if you will, from the journey. And it's always, from a use case standpoint, start by removing screen scraping, which is why you're removing this through those standard APIs. And then, depending on whether you're on fintech or banks, you're going to use different type of use cases. You're going to start with depending on your strategic objectives. Do you want to retain customers? Do you want to gain more customers? Do you want to increase your deposit? So there are countless almost use cases that the banks or fintech can use, and we can go through some of them if you'd like.
Great, thank you. We're going to be having, a more deep dive session later on, right after the refreshments break. I know we're almost heading towards the end of time here. I'm going to come to you next, I think, Michelle. But before that, if there are any specific audience question, by the way, I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A right now. But if there are any final questions before we close the session, do let us know. What we would also want to know a little bit about is if you're implementing, say, open banking right now, as a provider or as a consumer, what does that journey look for you, and what are you actually trying to implement here? So I'm going to launch a little bit of a poll just to gauge a bit of that interest from the audience. And you'll probably see two questions, which is, have you implemented an open banking standard as a data provider? And the other one is as a data consumer. We've listed some of the names down there. Tell us, this is a multiple sort of choice, so to speak. Like you can tick more than one if that applies to you. So let us know. We'll be keen and interested to know about that. I think we've got about a minute to go. So Michelle, just from a final thoughts around, say, open banking per se, where do you see heading into the future, perhaps maybe a year down the line, a couple of years down the line? There are some pretty strong changes that are also coming into the picture, both from a technical and cultural standpoint. There's AI coming into the conversation in a pretty big way. There's the AI readiness challenges that might be coming in. So according to you, what is sort of one advice that you can probably give today to financial institutions that are looking or thinking about open banking and into the future, what that could mean for them? What does that AI readiness journey look like? What should they get right? And then to make the most of the opportunities that are to come.
Yeah, I would say that many of these other countries have been forced into open banking. Therefore, like the CMA9 were forced to future-proof their backend for data in, data out, get their data lakes in order, know where their consumer data was, know where their business data was. What I'm telling people now is, A, you need a business case. Look to this McKinsey report from 2021, pull up anything from Open Finance Network or anywhere else you could find it, and create your business case for AI on setting up the foundation through open finance. Because if you have data in, data out, and consent, then you are set up. Like these 98 other countries are better set up as a full ecosystem to personalize consumer financial infrastructures and products because they know where their data is and because they could partner with new entrants quite quickly because they have an API that can go in and they could stop any screen scraping because they have the right ecosystem. So I would just say to everyone, look at creating a business plan. I see some of the comments today have been, it's very hard to get approvals. Find a use case from another market that aligns to your customer base in Brazil or the UK or Australia or Singapore, or pick one of the 98 and then take that use case, make a business plan, attach it to your AI budget, and look at this as an infrastructure change to the future. It's like moving from Kodak's camera to the digital camera. There's no going back. So make a plan.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have to bring this session to a close. Of course, we can go on for at least another hour. I'm pretty certain there's so many things to discuss and talk about. Hopefully, through the course of today, we will be touching a little bit deeper into some of these topics, especially around FDX, open finance, open banking. We'll see some of the real world case studies come to life right after this, which tells us next topic after this is going to be in about 8 minutes time, where we will be exploring the journey of Tab Bank, which is going to be a presentation looking at their case study, their use case, and what they were able to achieve from their own journey into APIs and financial services. So with that, I big thank you for everybody who's here in the audience, as well as our amazing panelists for all of those insights. We'll definitely have a few more of coming back for future sessions. But in the meantime, appreciate all of those insights. I learned quite a lot. Hopefully the attendees did as well. Until next time, thank you so much.